What is up, everyone? We're back with another Build Beauties. Now, today I have a guest who was at North Kai himself. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yep, Kelly Dennis.
Kelly Dennis, running Enhanced Broly. This is a deck that he used on the Octagon circuit. I think this was your first tournament playing it in person, I believe, right?
Yes, it was the first live tournament. Only the second one I've been to since COVID has kind of settled down, but this is the first time I took it to a live tournament.
Yeah, and this is deck. If you followed up with the game, probably for the last, I'd say, 2 sets, you've probably heard a lot about this deck, really since Enhanced came out, but uh, definitely a very strong deck. Definitely one of those decks that I think a lot of people consider in the top tier. I would,
Mm-hmm.
I put it in the top 5 decks at the moment personally, even after it's gotten some nerfs. But this is what Kelly chose to run. He's got a lot of experience in the deck. So Kelly, how did your record end up at North Kai?
North Kai, I ended up 3-2, and I was pretty stressed going into that final round of Swiss because it was 2-2 playing to win in your end game. And, thankfully, the likes of you and Jeff were my breakers heading into that fifth round, so I felt like getting a win in the final round was going to get me in, and that's exactly what happened. Got in seventh, and, and then played it out from there.
Yeah, so your 2 losses, well, one was Survival, one was Anger, which arguably this deck I think does really good against all 3 win conditions, if I had to say so. On you,
Right. Yeah, I think taking inventory of each, starting with DBV, and it's kind of funny. I'm taking inventory of the win cons, and then I think to my top 4 or top 8 match with Kevin, where every single one of those win cons is completely eliminated due to the matchup. But starting with DBV, the deck is packed with so many crits on demand, either by mastery or power reveals on level 1, level 2 with Tantrum and Legendary Blast. Back Crash can be crit, not even just from mastery, but from hand as well. And a multitude of other avenues. Bear Hug, namely, being one of them. So I'd say probably 12 to 15 crits on demand throughout the 60 card deck. So DBV is, barring a sack speedball deck here and there, DBV is effectively a non-factor, which kind of played into one of my decisions as to why I wanted to run the deck. And then survival, I mean, it's enhanced. It's Broly, the rejuve on level 2, the rejuve on the mastery, rescue, targeting, rejuve, and the endurance count. I would say, and once I go into how I built the deck originally, one of the core competencies or strategies I push into the deck and why I make certain deck choices is the endurance specifically. And this guy, I think the endurance is around, I would say, somewhere between 75 and 90. And
yeah,
it's probably on the higher end of any of the other enhanced NPs that you stick into the enhanced shell. So survival is really well intact. And then MPPV, uh, you know, Broly's level 2, I can tutor the anti-MPPV cards, whether it be saying Peace or saying Overpowering Aura Drill. Namely, that latter drill, saying Overpowering Aura Drill, there are so many rejuve triggers in the deck, and it's also on the higher end of other enhanced shells, so I'm triggering that drill over and over and over in a single combat. So, I would say it generally does very well against MPPV, but Ascension Trucks really pushes it to its limit because of Kneebash. And when you play Jeff and he sees it over and over and over again,
yeah,
it's not gonna go my way
yeah,
more often than not.
yeah. Well, we'll
But
get into the deck choices here. So starting out, not as much board as I would think it would be, but you run only 2 of Monk Drill, 2 of Overpowering Aura Drill. The rest of your drills
mm-hmm.
are 1-ofs. Why is that?
Muck Drill, I would say, so that those changes were, I guess, a reflection of the meta now. If I go back to when the deck was kind of first came onto the scene, that's when the enhanced shell was really started to be explored, and people didn't know how to respond to the shell, respond to the deck. They didn't know what those key cards were, so I ran a one of every single drill. And back then, there wasn't a lot of drill hay hanging around, and I was able to get by with it. Having 2 of Muck and then later 2 of Overpowering Aura Drill was something that came much later, where board hate increased once people started figuring out how to respond to the deck and beat the deck. And then second, Goku is a thing. People are expecting it when they go into a tournament. So drill hate, board hate is at a, you have to expect it. And through testing, Muck Drill just proves again and again to be that game-changing card. The parenthetical when it pops into play is very cool. You can see your opponent's hand, but that card swing, one attack with Muck Drill, you're milling one for mastery on your opponent, and then you're banishing two more from their deck with the Muck Drill trigger while putting two cards back in your deck. If you do the math, that's a 4-card swing. No, that's like 5-card swing. Am I doing my math right? They lose 3, I lose 3, but I gain 2. So that's a 5-card swing with each time I trigger that in combat. Do I have that math right?
So you're taking 3 off their deck, and you're taking 1 off your deck to then put 2 back in your. It's a 4-card. It's a 4-card
okay.
swing no matter what.
All
Yeah,
right.
but you're dealing 4 damage to somebody, and 1 to yourself. So, but yeah,
right.
no, a very very powerful drill.
Yeah. So that one, and then the second, the 2 copy for overpowering Aura Drill, just walking into North. It actually was a one of 2 minutes of just a few minutes before submitting my list at North Guy, and I have Brandon Diggers to thank for that. But I was just kind of looking through my list and looking around, and I felt okay. There's more anger hanging around than I expected. And originally, I had 2 saying Corruption Drill as my other drills, a 2 of, and then when I was writing out my list, I didn't feel great about how that looked and felt on paper. And then when I was looking around, I said, okay, I need to swap this. I took it down to a 1 Corruption Drill and then added a second OPA drill, which easily won me at least 1 game.
Yeah.
So, and then the rest, they are what they are. But those are the 2 drills I think that win me more games than any of the other drills in the deck.
And on top of the anger lowering package, of course, there's Distortion Drill, another anger control drill. Stops you from getting your own anger risen. For when that matters, like an Aura Clash or something, I suppose. But
yeah, that one more important. Yeah, that one more importantly, it prevents me from. It's another card to prevent me from being de-leveled. It does the same thing as Tracking Blast, except it's just a constant on the drill. So it locks me in at level 2, and this serves as extra backup to Tracking Blast, which can be shaken off pretty easily by a multitude of effects. And the fact that it has endurance 4 is nothing to blink at either.
And on the same note as that, the level of protection we have, like Extreme Training as a 1 of stops you from getting. Actually, lets you use crit effects for what it's worth if your opponent tries to like dig you up or something. So.
Yeah, I mean that's another avenue to crit, but that one came in. It was in some of my earlier builds, but not maybe the first couple tournaments. And you may remember this when we were playing. We played a couple games, and there was one UOP tournament that we ended up in the finals in. It was that tournament where I added Extreme Training for the first time. And the reason for that is it protects you from being leveled up. So if I'm going up against an Earthball deck, which is what you were running, if I testing, I have Distortion and Tracking Blast to protect me from being de-leveled. But what do I do if I play Radiant or any deck running Earthballs? Well, that is the card that keeps me from being leveled up. So that in tandem with Distortion and Tracking, it locks you in it locks you in and it enables you to run a level 2 camp deck, very unlike any other build that's out there.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we'll just looking over the rest of the drills. I mean, the last 2, of course, 1 protection makes sense. You have 1 transformation drill. I'm curious, did you get any good use out of this drill this weekend? I think you played 1 Aura Goku, but I don't think it sounded like it.
I did because I remember talking to you and Tardino, the other 2 enhanced decks. You guys weren't running it.
Yeah.
You had your reasons for it. I felt differently about it. I think part of it is it has the 1 reju trigger, so it just kind of feeds into the 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 reju triggers that I have per combat.
I think with Broly level 2 specifically, for example, right, and then you have all those drills for the anger lowering. Like you have the whole package that I have, but on top of it, like your level 2 gives you stages. So like there's just so much going on for you.
Yeah, it actually did win me 1 game. That was the round 5 matchup where I had to win and get in. I played Aura Goku, and that is I thought about dropping it, but Aura Goku, that matchup is exactly why I did not drop it. And that matchup, the way it was trending, he had about 7 or 8 drills on the field, and I felt momentum was beginning to shift his direction, and I was able to tutor it with Broly level 2 with a blinding in hand. And luckily, I was able to get out of that combat alive and keep it in play. But the lucky thing on my part, I threw my last attack knowing he had a knee clash in hand to block it. He let it go through, and that last card in damage ended up being Orange Mocking Drill, which would have canceled out Transformation Drill. So once that was out of the deck, I knew the road was clear to trigger that guy, which ended up being the next turn. Sent 6, 7, 8 drills into his hand. He opens with Possession Drill, and then I throw a blinding immediately, and he proceeds to discard Unleashed, AK, Fierce Attack, AK. And I had no block, so I easily would have been wiped out that turn. So that Transformation Drill easily won me that game and got me in the top 8.
Damn. Yeah, that was the whole point. I mean, that is one of the huge benefits of running Transformation Drill, is to just sweep a whole orange board deck. But in my opinion, I didn't run because again, we have Orange Mocking Drill and Orange Provoking Drill, which both beat this card.
Right.
So it's
no, that's fair. It's fair logic.
Yeah, I mean that's why I opted to, but absolutely. So there is some first-hand account of this working great, obviously. And then of course one Villainous Visage. I mean, why not? You can't tutor it, but still, it's a good card. So.
Yeah, funny thing that was actually never in my deck until Friday, and that the only time I was able to pull it off was in top 8 where Kev walked into it and ended up milling it for 14, and that helped close the game. A very tricky game, but that was a huge swing for me in my direction.
Yeah. And then of course 3 stare down, no sphere, 1 rescue, 1 time, and a ball 7. No sphere. I mean, I understand. I mean, you're not running like any events in your deck other than stare down in time. So I mean, what do you need sphere for? What are you worried about sphere for?
Yeah, it's actually that point exactly. It's probably, admittedly, there's a little bit of confidence, arrogance, or whatever when it comes to me with this deck a little bit. And the rationale for not having sphere is, well, what events scare me? You can't use Unleash to send me up or down, and I have these win cons under such lockdown that I feel whatever event you're going to throw in a combat, I feel very confident I'm going to be able to get out of that combat just like any other combat. So does it come to bite me in the ass up from time to time? Yeah, here and there, but I've never felt the need to add spheres into this deck at least ahead of Norkai. I actually am considering it. I am kind of testing spheres in this deck.
Definitely
games into that.
Definitely a meta dependent call, I think too. I mean, if Unleash Beats really takes over again, for example, and the meta and anger goes away a bit, or if these slower control decks get started, like your decks that loop time or destruction, for example, orange destruction, for example, or hybrid, I could see sphere going. But stare down essentially does what you want sphere to do most of the time, other than counter like an aggressive Unleashed. So
yeah, I think I'll see how testing proves, like testing will prove how it fits in. But thus far, I just never felt like sphere was absolutely necessary. And the fact it's not style, it doesn't have endurance, it doesn't feed into the things that I built the deck to do. So
yeah, totally fair.
Yeah.
Going forward, a lot of attacks. Broly 1, 2, and 3 all want you to reveal 2 style attacks, so obviously you want to have a lot of style attacks. But Broly Insane has great synergy. He's got like 5? You're running 5 copies of cards that when you reveal them, they have critical damage effects, like you said earlier.
Right.
Beats the Dragon Ball matchup, beats ally matchup. Matter of fact, for what that's worth. So yeah, well, I mean, we can just run through these energy attacks. I think everything makes sense. I mean, through tantrums, like I could see Tantrum being a 2 of perhaps, but I understand a 3 of as well. It's just so powerful in the life gain.
Yeah, I think there were builds over the last 2 years where it came down to a 2 of, went back to a 3, went back to a 2. But I think that only happened when Bear Hug was pre-nerf. I think Bear Hug's got an instant crit on it. So, I had a surplus of crits. So probably I had 2 Tantrum at one point, but once Bearhug got nerfed, I knew I had to swing Tantrum back to a 3 of, and that's actually also when Legendary Strike came into the deck too. I wanted to just kind of, I lost 2 crits, so I wanted to bring them back in. So that's where, keep into that 3rd Tantrum came in, and then the 2 Legendary Strike came in.
I was gonna say Legendary Strike. What I really like about it is that you can play defensively for 2 anger, and I don't know if you did that all on like Jeff this weekend or anything.
No, it's actually I did not. I don't recall seeing Legendary Strike much at all in either of the 2 games I played him. I actually saw a burst maybe once over 2 games, which was very frustrating. And then watching you play Jeff and draw burst like every other turn.
That game
was
too
was
that game too was a horrendous game for him. Absolutely horrendous. Yeah. That was an immaculate game for me. But
I think the energy attacks are pretty chalk here. Leading up to the tournament, I had many of these were at a 2 of, Massacre was at a 2 of, Sludge Bomb was at a 2 of, Aerial Attack was at a 2 of. I think leading up to North Kai, and even the Bagel tournament back in March, between being rusty playing the deck live or just, I don't know, people teching it and losing some games and a new set coming in, new MPs, and it kind of, faltering a little bit over the time. My confidence in the deck was really low, and it was at a point where I felt it was over tweaked. And then playing live Thursday, Friday, you, Brandon, Derek, just kind of shaking that rust off and taking a fresh look at the deck again. A lot of these guys came back to a 3 of, Massacre, Sludge Bomb, Aerial Attack, etc., etc. The one I do love pointing out is Saiyan Focus Blast, which that one I would say it's unique to Broly. It's this guy right here.
Yep.
It's unique to Broly in the sense that you're going to be on level 2 almost the entirety of the game. And I think when Joey designed the card, the intent was to work with a dynamic deck with Goku that we're going to play because of his new Spirit Bomb level and whatnot, but in turn ends up helping Broly at the same time. So if you're going to be on 2 the whole time, has 2 endurance, and...
Do you like this card at a 2? Or more of like a 3
of? Yeah. I've tried a 3 of, and then I keep drawing it on level 1, and I don't want to see it that early. And it is just raw damage, but I think 2 is a sweet spot. Just because, again, I think that 3rd you'll see it on level 1 too frequently. So I'd rather see it later rather than sooner.
And you can always rejuvenate it for at worst. So
yeah, and then it creates the constant. I mean, if I really... again, it feeds into the can't strategy. At any point, if I gain anger, I can just gain stages instead. And that feeds into the level 2 with the stage gain constant and into the physical beats matchup that Broly handles very well. So I think it's a very well-rounded card for him specifically.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, and you can just choose to rejuvenate. If you're on level 2, every time you rejuvenate, you gain 2 stages. So you're trading a stage for a card in life. Yeah, so...
And... yeah, I mean, if that guy's floating, you can combine, I don't know, any rejuve effect, say Enhanced Mastery, gain anger. Well, instead, you can gain 2 on the rejuve and then gain 3 instead of the anger. So you gain 5 in one pop. So that's a good chunk there. But yeah, no, I love that card in Broly. I think it actually serves as a good option. Instead of, I know you run this instead of Desperate Blast.
Yeah.
Which I have experimented with. I don't like it in this deck, primarily because I do think the 3 mil is quite costly. But I think agreed, disagree. It depends.
Oh, I fought with Wayne on it a bit. Trust me, it was like a half hour to hour long conversation with him, and I was like, I don't know, man, mil 3 to deal a little bit more damage. But here's the thing with Broly though, is if they banish a drill, all right, it's banished. But with Broly, it's like you rejuvenate so much that like at some point you're gonna get it back in your deck and you go search it. Like if they destroy the drill, the next action you level 2 rejuve it, reveal, go get it. You know what I mean? So
I have found sometimes it's kind of clunky, but I think the thing, I'll put it in my deck, and then I feel bad about it every time because it doesn't have endurance. Technically a 0, but it doesn't have endurance, and for that reason, well, that's the prominent reason why it's not in my deck. It doesn't feed into the strategy with the endurance count, and Focus Blast has that. So I feel like that's a good alternative option to Desperate Blast for this deck in particular.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's totally fair. The 3-Os of everything else makes sense. I think Massacre just needs to be a 3. I mean, Burst, absolutely. Sludge Bomb, if you ever not run 3 of this card in an enhanced deck, you're an ape.
I know I had it at a 2 of, although
Oh,
even at
dude.
a 3 I never saw it. I never saw it soon enough against Jeff, and yeah, I felt bad.
No, this
Felt real
card
bad.
it's all around just great card. Aerial attack at 3. I mean, I can argue the 2 with Broly because he tutors, but even still, I think just getting
Yeah. If there's any edit I'm going to make immediately, I kind of want to put that back to a 2 of. I feel like it's always blocked. It has no. If it's blocked, it has no utility for me other than, I mean, it has endurance. It's not BAU. And I think, yeah, the Broly level 2. I just want to make sure that, hey, the drills in my deck, they're gonna come out.
Yeah.
Regardless, whether it's my level 2 or aerial attack, and I felt pretty good about it over the weekend. But I don't recall a point where aerial attack even hit all weekend in that tournament.
Well,
So,
I mean, ideally, you guarantee it, it just expedites your board plan. Is what that card does. You're already gonna get a drill every turn anyway with level 2, so it's like it's such is life, if that's blocked, then they're getting smacked by like something else with a better hit effect. That's like
that's part of the thought process. So
yeah,
I'm gonna keep testing it and see how 2 feels versus 3.
yeah,
But I will say the rationale for making it a 3 of, I think I mentioned I wanted to make sure my drills came out, but most importantly, the sooner Muck Drill can come out, all Muck Drill just has to be out for 2 or 3 combats, 2 or 3 triggers, and then the game is already you're already gonna have a vast difference in life card count
yeah,
between all the rejuve and then what Muck Drill is doing on top of the mastery. So 2 to 3 triggers, and that's all you need. So the sooner it can come out, the better.
yeah. I agree. I mean, I totally agree. I think the enhanced really benefits from having the drill package out, and obviously Broly's I think the best one at getting it. So, but physical attacks, I mean, 3 turning kick makes sense. 3 back crash versus 2.
Yeah.
Do you think 3 is better than 2 with this deck?
Are you talking back crash or?
Yeah, seen back crash. Do you like it at a 3?
I do love it as a 3 of. I know that's another card that we had talked about that is different from you and Ant.
Oh yeah.
And I think the reason being because Ant was running Cell, you're running Future Gohan, so you two are further on the aggro scale within the enhanced shell than Broly is. Broly is going to sit there in the mid range, and he isn't going to attack or lean on the attacks as a win con as much as Future Gohan and Cell are going to, and which means you're a little bit slower, and when you're slower, you're more susceptible to DBV. Well, I hate if there's any match, any tournament game that feels the worst losing for me personally. It's DBV, particularly Saki DBV, which has happened several times before, and I can think of a couple matches against Shane over the years, and I've just been sacked by DBV way too many times. So, it's at a 3 of in this deck because I do not want to lose to DBV. If I walk into a tournament and I don't want to worry about DBV, I don't want to think about it, I don't want to lose to it, this is the deck I go to because of deck choices like that for having 3 back crash and all the other crit triggers.
Yep.
And I think it's worked out. I remember we played UOP tournaments, and despite you running Knowledge Dende, I remember DBV was completely and it was Dende, so you were on the clock with creation, and DBV I recall was practically a non-factor because I could out crit you. This deck even out crits red DBV. Kevin's deck included. If you check his reporter when you do the video with him, he'll even tell you that his strategy going into the game, don't even put a single deep Dragon Ball in play. Not.
Yep.
He draw multiple throughout the game and bottom decked them immediately because He's familiar with the deck, and the crit volume is ridiculous, and back crash feeds into that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest strengths of this deck is just it's the amount of rejuvenation, stage gain, and crit damage effects in this deck. And it's a deck that can utilize all three of those effects very, very well in tandem with each other, which crit damage effects for most decks aren't really doing much, but this just the way that in which
Right.
you get the crit effects in this deck are so like low
Yeah.
cost, or they don't provide like a detriment to your deck building. You're not running these crappy
Right.
cards with immediate crits. Like all these cards are powerhouse, like Tantrum, powerhouse energy, legendary strike, powerhouse, a block card. Not to mention, uh, back crash is just the lazy on the board.
Right.
I say lazy as in just like it can sit in my pile and I can use it whenever I want to. Not to mention you could play
Yep.
it. Like there's just so much like control with this, for like a survival, anger, and DBV. There's just so much going. Like this deck has an answer to everything.
Yeah, I think that's what I mean. If you look at the enhanced shell, and it's basically the shell is going to be pretty consistent from NP to NP, and you can take that shell and whatever meta call or play style you want, take the shell, put in your NP that you want to fit that meta call or that style, whether it's Go Tank, Cell, Future Gohan, Bardock, Raditz, or Broly, you can follow that shell, and they all have different pros and cons, and I think it's exactly this the crit and survivability, which is what I think sets Broly apart, and not so much not so much in the sense that I'm not saying it makes him better than the other MPs, but it's something that he has as a competitive advantage as using that stack. If you pick that stack, you're going to have these things that work in your favor, whereas other MPs aren't necessarily going to have those same strengths. They'll have other strengths that lie elsewhere, but
Yeah.
in this case, Broly's ability to just completely erase DBV off the map is, very unique to him.
Yeah, I think Broly is the best enhanced deck by far, just in terms of like broad
You beat me.
matchups. I know, but
No,
like Future Gone is an interesting case where he walks over MP reliant decks, and this is what this deck is.
right.
You know,
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
you know what I mean? Like this deck hinges around Broly 2 to really fun. Like it's got an engine in itself, but Broly 2 makes
Right.
its deck like hum, which is why
Yeah.
that particular matchup is the way it was. But otherwise, I mean, again, this deck is like it's just the versatility in it. I mean, we'll just finish with the text real quick. Of course, at this point, Bear Hug's limit one. Thank God. I
Mhm.
hate this fucking card so much. Uh,
Yeah, I think in hindsight that was a pretty fair nerf. I remember that being a 3 of, combine that with Muck Drill and Corruption all together.
oh man.
You're talking like 8 card swings at some points.
Yeah, no, like just the worst is when they're just looping. So the worst was like turning kick, bear hug, taking those cards as damage slash milling them, then rejuvenating the back in the deck, having muck drill, corruption drill out. It's like
Right.
you cannot touch you could not touch enhanced Broly. And it's still like relatively that way for a lot of decks though. That's what's the funny part is that there's just still so many decks where it's just there's so much card and I really glossed over rescue, but rescue being able to attach with overpowering aura draw, of course.
Mhm.
You have an onboard 3 rejuve anger every turn before you even count in your MP, who rejuvenates 2 every turn if you're on 2 or 1 on 4. So now it's every turn you're
Yep.
guaranteeing 5 back in your deck.
Not even that, you're guaranteeing 3 separate instances of stage gain,
Yeah.
which can really mitigate the physical beats matchup. Not to mention the other sources of where that
Yeah, so
rejuve is coming
in a
from.
stage beats matchup, if you gain 6 stages from the 3 instances plus the 5 rejuve, there's 11 life you just took. That's essentially almost like an extra 2 blocks of turning against the stage beats deck
Right.
before you
I,
count in whatever you drew. So there's just so much going for it
yeah,
in a lot of
I
matchups.
remember. Yeah, I remember the first match I had at Northcon. I was playing David Meckler. He was running Enlighten Mystic Gohan, and it was physical beats, surprise attack.
Yep.
And I drew very well very early. Got to level 2, got the whole engine going. And I recall like the last combat or two, he had stage locked me, and meanwhile I had protection drill out on the field. I hit a card for endurance. I resolve the damage, do protection. Well, rejuve, I gained 2, and then I proceeded to play Saiyan Burst banish top card, Muck rejuves 2, so I gain 2 more stages. Now I'm a 4 above after being stage locked, before the attack is resolved. Corruption Drill rejuves another card, so I go to 6 above. Burst hits, and then I rejuve another card. So I've taken 1 action, and I go from 0 to 8 immediately. Well, 6. I have to pay the cost for burst, but that stage gain sequence is very common for this deck to pull off, and it's very difficult to stage lock. So all those triggers, and then throw the rescue, another avenue to target rejuve, a back crash, or a sludge bomb. It's pretty neat to keep that level 2 rolling.
Of course, one tracking blast goes in kind of tandem with the distortion drill, and then of course blinding energy move is a 1, 2 eraser cannon. Eraser cannon's a really goofy one to run.
You're gonna ask me about a third one, aren't you?
No. I always feel so weird about this card. I think like 2 is the perfect number for Enhanced Broly personally, from my experience. But it's just such an odd, there's a lot of times where I see it and I'm like, fuck. But it's such a better board hate option than what you really have access to. And you don't run Sand Dive in your deck.
I don't.
I hate Sand Dive. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
but...
yeah. I remember we were talking about it on Friday or one of the nights. I kind of hate it too. I don't want to banish anything from my pile. It doesn't have endurance. Not super meaningful, but that's another check in the con column. I can't trigger the parenthetical in any way, shape, or form. And I mean, I understand other MPs have to run it, but I have a Razor Cannon, so I don't want to bog my deck down too much. With no non-endurance cards and those that this doesn't have endurance. I feel comfortable with the Razor Cannon. Let's put it that way.
Having a hard banish, by the time I feel like you actually want to play it, it's worth it. You're ideally going to hit 2 of your opponent's spell cards if it hits. So.
Yeah, because they're. I find oftentimes it does hit because they don't want the tantrum hitting, they don't want the sludge bomb hitting, they don't want the focus blast hitting, and the other energy attacks that are in here. But those 3 to name, those are the things people will be looking for as priority blocks. So a Razor Cannon, unless they're a board deck, more often than not, is going to land.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is tricky because if I have a board and they don't, then sometimes it's a dead card for me. But it's strong enough to warrant a 2 of, and leave it at that.
Yeah. This is super interesting. Maybe this is the sign of the meta these days, but we talked about how much stage gain you have. You only run 5 hard physical blocks, but then you run 7 energy blocks. So I'm curious, why so high on the energies and so light on the physicals?
So this is probably an area that needs to be tweaked going forward. I would say before Super came out, the block volume you see here is quite high. If I think back to my earlier builds, I really leaned into the survivability and the stage game with Broly. So I think my hard block count was at 8. That's including time.
Oh my
god. So I just said, fuck it. All right, if I get hit with a dig or a static blast or fierce attack or whatever, I'll eat it and hope my rejuve can get me by. It's only gonna be maybe a combat. 1 combat that happens, maybe 2. I'll chalk it up. But I was really leaning into the survivability, the stage gain, and then the endurance count to really cheat on blocks to then put to other attacks, other cards, other forms of utility. And then I think I had to adjust the block count once people started figuring out and getting more familiar with Enhance and how to beat it and how to attack Broly specifically. So the block count had to go up a little bit. And I think the 5 physical blocks I have here, they're anger. They have to be because sometimes, as our game proved it, that level 1 isn't always going to be enough to get me over the hump to get me to level 2. So I got to toss those guys in there. And they also serve as extra anger hate via distortion drill, which is probably the reason why I lasted that second game with Jeff so long. But yeah, no, those 5, they're there for that reason. The energy block suite is definitely a bit more nuanced here because you see all the one-ofs. But starting with evasion, great, has endurance. It banishes a card off the opponent's life deck immediately, so that's great. And it's not BAU, so I love that parenthetical. When those things hit my discard pile, I very rarely banish them for endurance, and particularly in, I guess, in hindsight, North Kai wasn't very energy beats heavy. There was a lot of mixed beats, but Goku was going to be there. So having that as a 3 of to get that passive mill and just have that block count at a 3 of, it feels good. And at a 3 of as opposed to a 2 of, if I see 2 in my pile, I'm gonna rejuve them with enhance to get that passive mill right away. But then, it's gonna be forever until another one turns over. So
Yeah.
3 feels good. It feels like it's always in my pile. And then the rest are all here for specific purposes. Saying crouch, I'm just gonna go, left to right,
Yep.
top to bottom. Saying crouch. I love in this deck because unlike other enhanced MPs, they're typically not leveling. Once you hit 2, you're there for the game. So when it does get attached, it's going to stay there. And that further pushes the physical beats matchup because it's increasing my PR by 3. It's not BAU. And OPA drill can fish it from either my life deck or my discard pile. So it's very easily attachable. And on level 2, my PUR is 4. Throw that thing on Broly, my PUR becomes 7. And then a stage gain is just it feels impenetrable from the opponent's side. And if I see a physical beatdown deck across from me, that's usually going to be my first target. Not tracking, not rescue. It's going to be that.
Yeah.
That just kind of slows the game down early, and then ultimately late game as well. Energy repulse. I said it. You're gonna be on level 2 almost the entirety of the game. It's an energy prevent, and if you're level 2 with, I believe it has a trait lock on it. Yeah.
2 or less, which Broly's only 1, so he always gets
right.
the double prevent.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. He checks that off, so it's a double prevent. Has endurance, so it's a nice 1 of. I've thought about 2, but 2 is a little much for a prevent. So I would prefer the hard block.
If it was like a hardcore energy meta, 2 could go for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. Granted, I mentioned Aura Goku for
Yeah, but
being
like,
in the meta, but intensity, fierce attack, it's
yeah, there's plenty of ways to get around this card, so it's kind of it's incredibly fair card for being a W's considering that it's a prevent.
Yeah.
But
And then the last 2, forceful stop. It's this extra anger hate. It has endurance, and on level 2, it can just add a little nice chip mod to all my attacks. And then Malefic Energy Shield. This wasn't in my deck for a really long time. I will say the energy count is higher than the physical count because once Empowered came out and Piccolo is kind of running around quite a bit, his level 2 was really pissing me off. And
yeah,
you might recall the one post I made on Retro a while back that got some of the conversation around Empowered Piccolo going until people started talking and then realizing it wasn't nearly as strong as we thought it was. But that level 2 kept punching through the endurance because I didn't want
yeah, you don't want,
I didn't want that to snowball. So it's getting on my nerves, and I wanted to do something to extend my hand. Well, Malefic, it stops an energy, it grabs an energy from my discard pile, and it also mills my opponent, and it has endurance. So it literally does a lot of the same things that the other cards in my deck do. So, I tested a couple games, and immediately I felt like it was a natural fit.
nice. Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. Those 1-ofs in that situation, and then
Yeah,
the Malefic. So
yeah, I did. The last thing I will say, forceful stop is might kind of just look at some of the other blocks Saiyan has to offer and tweak that, and then depending on the energy block count, Malefic may or may not come out. If I'm not running that many energy attacks, and I'm already burying evasion more often than not with enhance, then that means they're not going to be in my discard pile that consistently.
yeah,
So Malefic may not be as useful as it seems. So
my biggest my biggest thing is with the Enhanced Master. It's like if you're in the matchup where you want those blocks, you're gonna be prioritizing putting them back.
yeah,
So they're not going to be in there for an energy shield grab unless you held it and
right.
drew and do nothing. So that's why I don't like it, and it's freestyle.
Yeah.
But
Um,
stuff to consider.
yeah, I mean, and to add to that, if I'm playing against an energy deck, and even if physical beatdown deck, I feel very confident in the deck's ability to survive, and oftentimes I will just eat damage because I want to fill up my discard pile to get things like evasion into my pile, um, or flip over a turning kick. There are a variety of reasons why I like taking damage intentionally.
Yeah, it's
You
like
know,
it's like being a knowledge player. It's playing like a knowledge making player.
yeah, wait for neat block to turn over. It's like, oh, okay, all right, well there it is. Um, and then I remember actually taking that strategy against both Jeff and Kevin. Jeff, him being Ascension Trunks, having multiple knee bashes in his pile. Most of both games that we played, and I would just take damage intentionally, waiting for that sludge bomb to turn over, which it never did. And against Kevin, I was waiting for turning kicks to flip over to get to my second overpowering aura drill. Which never happened. I needed to get it through other means, but there are reasons I like to take damage intentionally with this deck.
Yeah, no, understandable. Um, so like I said, yeah, you made what? You made top four. You lost to Jeff Sosa by anger. I heard that was a pretty close match from my memory.
Yes, it was one action,
Yeah,
one action
which you
away.
can't ask. Again, we go back to the whole. Um, just this deck has such a smart choice. I mean, I was all for you picking this
Well,
at the
thank you.
well,
Oh, thank you.
and this deck has just got so much going for it. I mean, seriously, on paper, it has so much versatility. I've barely played this deck personally, but I've had games where there's a great example. I played Anthony Tardino. He played Ruthless Gohan, and he enters like first turn, does like 40 life cards of damage, like a dig and like a god hand, and then I
Right.
proceed to live for like another 12 turns of him entering. And he couldn't whittle my life deck down like at all. To the point where like I was actually like considering that I didn't block like a single tackle game, I was still like in the game. It's just this deck is
Yeah.
insane. This deck is absolutely insane. Definitely looking at the numbers with all these threes and a couple cards. There's definitely a couple cards that I look up personally where I'm like, yeah, these could definitely numbers on these could definitely change. But I think this list is incredibly solid. And obviously you've piloted it to you've topped multiple Octagon events with it,
Yeah.
and now of course top cut North Kai. So very 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 powerful deck. I think it's the best enhanced deck overall, just across the board. So very nice choice.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think like going into it, like I mentioned leading up to North Kai, I was feeling very rusty and not super confident in the deck. I mean, I was flying sky high back in UOP when Enhanced Broly was running around and people were figuring out how to tech it. And then once people did figure out how to tech it, and then there was a bit of a lull in the game, I'd say during 2021, and severe lack of live play. And then Super came out. I wasn't feeling super confident about the deck, and I think I finally broke it after testing most of that day Friday with Brandon and Derek, and then looking at your enhanced Gohan, future Gohan right next to me, looking at your build for
Yeah,
inspiration.
yeah,
So between those games and looking at your deck, it really got me to refine some of the card counts that were in here, and really shook off that rust. And I was feeling super confident about the deck again. So, I'm really glad I finally picked it for a live event. I'd say finally, but there have only been two accessible
yeah.
events for me
That's true.
in the
That's true.
last few months. I'm hoping to attend more of the Kai's coming up, but yeah, no, I'm glad I was finally able to get it to a live tournament and show it off.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely,
so yeah,
absolutely.
I think it definitely worked out.
Yeah, I can't remember. Did you end up playing this deck at all? You didn't play this deck Friday night, did you?
No, Friday night that mini tournament, I used Mischievous Boo.
That's right.
Um,
Okay,
you
never
know
mind.
that Yeah, it tends to fall flat. Like it's gotten better for my earlier builds, but it tends to fall flat. And I happened to play Brandon and then Wayne back to back the first two rounds, both of whom were running black. And black beats angry beats pretty easily.
Yeah, I
At
can't.
least the black brand of angry beats.
Yeah, Trick Shot can definitely be a kind of a dick, and then of course Brandon's manipulative Roshi ball the ball to you in the Discovery. But yeah, well,
Yeah,
interesting. But yeah, no, I'm again excellent run. To kind of wrap this one up, I know there's a couple cards. It seems like really just men dependent about what would change in this deck.
yeah, yeah. Um, I, Yeah, there are probably three, four, maybe five things I want to change, like card counts, maybe fitting spheres in, maybe tweaking the block package and the block count. But I think for the most part, it's pretty resilient to any deck that you put up, you know, put across from it. I think it's also fair to say, just toss the future enhanced future Gohan matchup in the trash. That's something I learned last weekend.
uh,
But again, if you take the enhanced shell and pick whichever MP you're going to pick, you're going to, say you pick future Gohan, you're going to be enhanced Broly, but are you going to have that much of a, better off time against physical beatdown or DBV? If you got to work a little bit harder there, where Broly doesn't have to work as hard, you have trade-offs depending on the MP that you pick. So
yeah. Yeah. Again, excellent. I just think this is an excellent deck. I mean, I consider you the best enhanced Broly player there is. So,
well, thank you.
by all
Flattering.
means, I hope this deck gets out there more. I think more people should play it. Maybe it's just people don't play it because enhanced, whatever the reason. Um, but again, excellent run. Congratulations. And I don't know where you're sitting point wise. Did you top cut at the East Kai that they carried the points over from? Or I thought they were carrying points over from East Kai
The
2020.
They are
Okay.
because I know Shane's up in the top echelon as
Mr.
one of
Qualifier
the
with
yeah,
yeah.
he qualified already. I forget what I did. I think I played Mischievous Boo because I didn't have any other decks that were really standing out, and that was before Enhanced really started
Yeah.
getting explored in the first place. And I picked Mischievous Boo because I just felt like, all right, I've been toying with this deck for a year, just get it out there. And I proceeded to play every blue deck in the tournament and just got smacked.
That's true.
Um,
Yeah.
so had
RIP.
and yeah, and I mean, and with that said, I mean, I think Enhance was out, but it didn't get the support that it eventually got in Movie Collection 3. Or I had the set ordering in my head really mixed up for those last few Z sets.
Yeah.
But it got a shit ton of support after Fusion, and that's where Enhance really started kind of coming alive. I
Yeah. Those
remember the UAP.
that whole block of the final sets of Z really gave that mastery everything it needed. So
Yeah,
for
no,
sure.
it did. And I remember that's when the UAP circuit came up, and we were all excited being home, playing a lot of different tournaments, got people to experiment a lot. And I mean, I wasn't the only enhanced Broly player playing the deck. Zach Johnson also had a version of the build. Ours, if I recall, maybe 10 to 15 cards different. I
Yeah.
think where how he was approaching was a little bit different than mine. Mine was just very purely. Ah, it's been so long, but
They're
there are
diff
some
yeah,
key,
they're
key
they're a bit
there are
different,
some
but
key card choices that you know set us apart. But
yeah.
he still has success with it. Um,
Yeah.
but outside of us two, I haven't I haven't really seen anyone run it to any consistent degree.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, again, awesome deck. Congratulations. I think we're gonna wrap up the recording here, guys. So if you'd like to check out more, there'll be more deck lists coming along from all sorts of events. Hopefully, I'll try to contact people that win some of the other events throughout the season.
mhm,
Of course, in that sense, good luck, Kelly. I hope to see you at
mhm.
TOP this year, as well as a
Yeah,
few other people that I know. So,
yeah. No, I'm hoping. I think I'm currently 10th or 11th in PL standing, but congrats on your win, Frank.
yep, thank you.
Um, I guess I'll take pride in my only losses being you and Jeff.
That is
Both
about
people who had
that's about as
both
good
people who
as it
end up in the
gets.
finals.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I'll see what other events I can get to, this year, and hopefully I can just earn an outright invite instead of having to accrue the points. But yeah, we'll see.
absolutely. Well, anyway, guys, this will be the end of the video. Again, more deck lists. Check them out. More stuff will be coming. Thank you, Kelly, again, and take it easy. Peace.
Cool. Thanks, Frank.